Chungster here, and welcome guys again. So I was been totally where I've been here and you think what it else to be look like. Gosh, I was totally imagine how I did this recording. So after I did that, what if Central Powers win in the First World War, Part 1 Origins. So I'm giving this imagine what it did to be look like, and let us know to be seen this kind of thing. That World War II is actually how it changed everything before defeating the fascist Germans and Imperial Japanese. It's a very fair way to see and kind of thing. However, in alternate history, that what if actually happened if Soviet Union can actually join the Axis forces to sign the tripartite pact. In this case, doesn't look like as a real confederation law, and guys, let me know in your comment. That will be fair to see if you guys will notice how I spoke to, so subscribe for more videos. So let us begin. The world is finally in early 1933 before World War II in 1939. That case to be seen once that after Europe was been dead for 1914 before World War I, Russian Empire almost collapsed for the first time for about 98 years ago, and that should be here for about it happened. That should be done for as always once Soviet Union did violate most biggest country, and also Germany did to fall in 1918 and becoming itself to Weimar Republic and the German Reich, and so that should be happening. It's not so severe, but it looked as a dangerous colonies, and so that happened to be aware. Until World War II begins for almost a decade now for the first time in 1931. We're giving this and about this for the four Axis powers. Germany is a dark gray, Italy is a brown, the Soviet Union is a red, and Empire of Japan is a gold. But that should be here to accept then. Once that, it should be far away as possibility to see if it's noticement. Once that, to be getting up for powering will be far away as possible times. However, I should be think is about it how World War II happens. That should not just far away would be looked. And about this for a bit of it, after Japanese literally occupied Manchuria in 1931. However, the Sino-Japanese War has now goes another. But I mean the second Sino-Japanese War between this kind of thing from about 1931 until 1937. That almost thing the Chinese military is now actually weak, and most of that would be seen. And that just far away is not very similar from this around from responsibility. Then almost now the Japanese actually pushing forward, and until then it kind of a free choice to itself time's up. Then, until then, they varies to fight off their countries. Since that, the Japanese actually fighting the Kuomintang against the vote. And almost for now, the Nanjing massacre breaks out. It was dead for about countries that has been dead for 83 years ago. That Japanese were actually very cautious, killing millions of dozens of deaths, and feared to itself as once people were died in the city of Nanjing, and not just been far away taint. It is impossible to make the conquest of Nanjing. It is once again to be dangerous to be far away as approach and wants to be cautious, but it does and does not look like to be emerged as poet. In the 1938, that wished that kind of a thing about it that Austria will be part of the Germany. However, in 1939, the Germans will be fairway for the countries is almost now invasion of Poland. For about this is actually Polish armed forces were in the West. Exactly how I found this for countries, I saw this video from the simple history, and that just never seen as a collidable. That did not just have it to it spoken to be happening that what it did to rejoice is not so tellman and what it didn't looked. However, the Soviets were about to eliminate Poland again because they have lost the Polish War in 1921. And so the Germans and Soviets both helping each other to invade Poland forever. And so for that, what we basically how it goes for the responsibility is not yet evaded to be symbolized. Until then, the almost thinking that Poland is now invaded, and so for now it would be fair to its possibility to be looked. And so that will be next invasion to be seen, and once that it would be far away as possible. And until that didn't look as a very much to be further, isn't so quite to be big, and that did not very readily to accept it, so Soviets will be fair to accepting. And once Poland to its city of Warsaw is only belongs to the Germany. And until then, the Germans and Soviets annexed Poland, and about it for about 3 seconds, and it's fair way to see this as not so settlementally. In that case, it's so fairment by communist thing, however, the Soviet Russia still hasn't far away vote. It has not enough landing. And until then, they could annex the land of the Baltic lands between Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, then the parts of the northern Romania. Plakanis, which is now modern country, is Moldova. And it should be fair way as not so settlement, but that is an inclusive. And for now, the land has been seen that Baltic lands and northern part of Romania were annexed. And so far away would be next inside of its lands doesn't look as it's fair too much. However, the Germans will keep itself by fighting in terms once before invasion of France. And so that didn't conflict the two yet, and so that's just happening. It's not very settlement to see this. And so Russians still isn't so far away to the late. Why they didn't fight the Chinese still, and that could be done with the Siliconis. Until then, they'll be fair away as always, isn't not very true, will be responsibilities. All I know that how Finland became part of the Russian Empire, but never Soviets, and until that, they decided to request it to inspect into it and action tapped that what if actually happened if Finland was annexed by Soviets. From this will be fair by Soviet could join the Axis. Well, that didn't fair way to see this if happens once that Finland will be invaded once more. The Winter War was actually success. I believe it's fair way to be havoc if this happened was not yet to be in danger. It is not so quiet times, but it's looked like to be a fair way if that havoc to be seen as its settlementary, that Soviets will annex Finland itself. Until then, the British has been factually fallen to civil war after Germans inclusive to make outcome with Operation Passchendaele. Once that it did for the ending of World War I, how Germans lost the Battle of Passchendaele, and so fair way to see the kindness. However, the British were about to take about this settlement once defeated by Germans. Unfortunately, there was something happening. The British syndicalism were rising, and to be known as Union of Britain, until Ireland is now falling, in that kind of a thing, but actually for this setting, until Ireland falls, it's very possibly is not very good to be look happening, is not so settlement, what did it seized. And until then, there will be fell into the Civil War, and inclusive that, the Union of Britain will be George Orwell instead on the north, creating the capital in the Burg instead, and also obviously by their leader of the British Union of Fascists. And to the next top, however, the Soviets actually annexed the Xinjiang for the first time. Is so fair way to see this and not very conscious, and that havoc to itself is a so responsibility to see that didn't convict it well, and until that was been seriously reduced to its medal for the consideration, until it was done out for as always. Until then, the fairway the Soviets almost keep invading the China to aid the Japanese, and so fairway is not so settlement where it looked. Until then, once again, very conscious. Once Japan was very conscious before reducible time and conscious. Once taken out, the Soviet government decided to create the Soviet Republic of China. And that should be fair to be seen as a settlement to be responsibility look like. It's not so simple. Then, however, it's so different conscious thing. Once the invasion of China would be success, General Tojo gives the thanks to Joseph Stalin to himself, and yet he would learn to speak Japanese. But he never speaks like this language. He would not notice to himself what he does until what it should be havoc to an end. And until then, it's not so simple. What it looked as instead of racial thought, it would not be forward what it looked to be different. And that didn't convict it too well, and so we're giving this is so much different what it looked to be do so. It's that things doesn't learn with it to be far away. And finally, the very conscious the Soviet made the conquest of Middle East all over the places, and until it was been done after the invasion of Turkey. And of course, that havoc to accept it. Until then, the Soviets very so strong to itself is instead of conscious but it locked. Until then, they just collaborated to decide to resist to make independent countries, but the Soviets almost conquered the Africa, and that happens to be seen where it did to be looked. And that where it did to happen to be seen was not so very familiar. What did it just happened. Until the Japanese successfully occupied the rest of the Pacific Islands with Southeast Asia to the Myanmar and Bangladesh. Before that, it was virtually how did its success. However, they failed to invade New Zealand. Because of this, the New Zealand has been fallen to civil war instead of its combined, and actually New Zealand became itself by Soviet puppet government. And Charlie Chaplin lives this land and spoke of it that he will never flee to Switzerland once more. And we have the last one, is the invasion of America. That's right, everyone will be noticed about this challenge to be look like. Until that was been fair to see isn't so far away, and let's see about this what this invasion would be look like. And let us begin one more time. So the Soviets almost now virtually annexed the Alaska instead of its own for voting. Once the Alaska falls, becoming the country as the Soviet Socialist Republic. Until Soviets cutting invading Canada as a cutting to be a very invasion as a Canadian Communist Party. Quebec, however, is actually what he does. The communist becoming a virtual Quebec participating as a peasant resistance of the Axis powers to be seen as an rival. Until Japanese, however, invaded California instead to be seen as Japanese invasion of America, and fairly as its possibility would be looked. Then the kind of a thing, the Axis in the East, very taking over the America too. And once Joseph Stalin does not need help to invade the America, because of him he wanted to be sinless. And once Soviets invaded Mexico instead, and Cuba decided to itself as a revolutionary power, and so that would be rise up to accepted. And once Brazil falls, and Argentina becoming itself to be an empire, then it joined the Axis forces, and until that was been fair as possibility for the looked is not so settlement. Once Inca rises and invades Brazil, and fairly that is now the real fall of South America. However, United States of America instead is now becoming natural zone, and that fairway to be seen is what is from the men in the high castle, and that should be fairway is done as a various speed isn't that so look like, and I giving this according to itself is not so sentiment, and that should be done as always. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to my channel if you are not done so for WW2 yet, and I'm giving for more videos if I would do this for the next week. Until then, you guys will know me how is this happening. Until we'll be seeing this as a fair way to know this, I will give you for more stuffs to accept it. So until then guys, subscribe to my channel. If you haven't done so, I would give it to a certain kind of thing. So that's it for this today, and I hope you enjoyed the next video. I'll see you guys in the next video. Junkstare is out.